Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the show where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwaka Mimo. The controversial Security Laws Amendment Bill is up for debate tomorrow. Much has been said for and against it. What is clear is that it's the latest attempt by the government to get a handle on security. But there have been howls of protest over concerns that the bill reverses civil liberties gained and is, in some cases, vague and open to sinister interpretation. To help us understand what's good about the bill, we have Senator Kipchumba Murkomen of Elgeyo-Marakwet, who is also a law professor. Speaking against the bill is constitutional lawyer Dr. Ekuru Aukot. Muteginjao of Royal Media Services and political analyst David McCulley are in the studio as the Cheche panel, giving us a full house. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the program. Kipchumba, I'll give you the first word. Why should the National Assembly pass this bill in its current form?
Well, there has been a lot of call by the public, both sides of the political divide, that we need to up our game insofar as matters of security are concerned. Legislation is just one of the actions that we need to do, and there is no doubt across the country that something needs to be done in terms of the laws. First of all, we need to improve on coordination of security matters, and that's why you have various coordination boards in the bill. You have a coordination on security at the airports. You have a coordination of security on terrorism. You have also improving coordination of the all security agencies within the country. So first of all, that is one. Two, the objective of every government is to protect life and property. The idea of bringing in legislations at such a time as this is to enhance the right to life in Article 26 and the right to property as provided for Article 40 of the Constitution. So the objective here is to operationalize Article 24, which gives exceptions to enjoyment of a right by individuals so that the society as a whole can be able to benefit from that right. You can see from that law again that we are becoming proactive to deal with matters of terrorism, training of terrorists, use of public facilities and worship places for purpose of terrorism. It's provided for in the law that it's punishable for anyone to assist terrorists. We are improving on border control, and there is also a unit for all the agencies that are dealing with the borders of this country. So there is the problem I have with the opponents of the bill is not that they are opposed to the provisions of the Act itself, is to say blanketly that we don't need a law to improve on matters of security.
That's not true.
Nobody says that.
That's not true in the first place. And secondly,
Dr. Aukot.
First of all, I think let's be very honest, and I'm happy Senator Murkomen has referred to Section 20, Article 24 of the Constitution. If many Kenyans will remember, this was one of those sections that somebody attempted to sneak in the word security.
Yes.
And therefore rob Kenyans of all the rights under the Constitution. So like a friend of mine said to me this morning as I was telling him I'm coming for this show, that what this bill is trying to do for Kenyans is to rob us of the only thing terrorists can ever take away from us, which is the Constitution, the guarantees in that Constitution. Now, Senator Murkomen goes about all these institutions they are creating, and we've been saying you can create the most beautiful institutions in the world in the Constitution. But if you put in, for example, a cow or a goat and expect them to do the things that that institution is supposed to do, that's very wrong. Now, let's address the issues here. First, the problem with the matters of security in this country is the politicization and ethnicization of those matters. Now, this bill is not curing the politics around security. It's not curing the politics of ethnicity in our security matters. It's also not curing the questions of accountability, the failings of security institutions. And I can give many examples. If you pick Westgate up to the latest attack in Mandera alone, we were told one of the failings, one of the reasons we've been hit so hard is because people have failed to take intelligence reports very seriously. Okay? And we've not been told who are those people who fail. So now this bill really, is it curing that? Secondly, and related to that, let me give you my favorite example of Capedo, the killing of our 21 police officers, in which a confession was given before President Uhuru, Interior Security Minister, Inspector General Kimayo, and many, many other decorated police officers, that yes, we killed these people mistaking them for the Turkana, believing they were Turkana. Now, what more powers, more coordination do you need than to arrest actually the people who first of all confess that they killed and the people who know the people who killed? Instead, we allow criminals to negotiate with us and say, give us a few weeks to bring back the guns. Okay, so for me, it is very dishonest to say that this bill is improving on matters of security when we have even failed, by the way, to use the very little powers that we have as the institutions, as the police, as the interior ministry, as the presidency. I mean, you know, who is fooling who?
Can I just come to this point? One, Daktari here is my senior, and he was in the committee of experts that dealt with the law. It is completely erroneous and misleading the public to tell them that an act of parliament can take away constitutional rights. He knows that very well, that all these acts of parliament that we are passing can only improve. They cannot take away constitutional rights.
That's what the point is making.
No, let me just come to that.
Kipchumba,
That's what he said.
Address this point, though, that we have existing laws and we have failed to implement them.
I'm coming to that. The first point he made was that terrorism, this is taking away what terrorism cannot take our constitution. There is no way an act of parliament or an act of an executive person can take away the constitutional rights. So let's start from the basics. That this law, as it is,
just as you continue, isn't it true what he's saying, and if I get it right, is that some of those clauses, these amendments, are actually going to eat at the very core of our Bill of Rights,
there is no,
which the Constitution protects.
Let me make it very clear. There is no act of any person, any law that will be passed, any customary practice, that is the Constitution itself providing for in Article 3, that can take away constitutional rights. Let's start from there. Those are the basics. So any act of parliament that is unconstitutional will find its way to be declared unconstitutional at its own stage. Two, and most important, the Daktari is not addressing the bill. You know, let me just come to that point.
Come to that.
You know, the problem with many people, and I was seeing even professors yesterday and politicians, is to use lofty words, to use very heavy words about unconstitutional, taking us to Moi's era, but nobody's pointing out a particular section that he thinks that it is against Article 24, which gives the exceptions of every right so that other people can enjoy.
But the message is justifiable. May I also add the rider?
You must read
Let me add the rider. Justifiable, but in a democratic society.
That is why we're using parliament.
Where the contention
Part
is coming.
of the process of exercising democracy is to, for whatever limitation provided for in Article 24, must be by law. Must be by law.
Before we go to
Let me conclude. I gave them a chance. Let me conclude something. Article 25 gives us all the rights that cannot be limited. That is freedom from slavery. That is right to fair hearing. That is
expression.
Habeas corpus being produced in court, and finally fair hearing. All other rights, including right to life, can be limited by law.
Okay.
First of all, I think if there's anybody using lofty words here without necessary substitution, I think it's Senator. When you say that this bill does not take away any constitutional provisions under Article 3, for example, a question I would like Senator to respond to is, why then engage in an exercise in futility if you know the law that you're putting forth is actually going to be a nullity in the end anyway?
But
so why enter into a goose chase about legislating for something that already offends existing constitutional rights? Because that is the provisions of Article 3. And listen, we'll go to the provision.
Can they give me examples?
We'll go to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah. Give me examples.
Let's come down to it. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Section 6 of the Public Order Act is amended. Yeah. Any person who, just a bit of it, any person who unlawfully convenes, organizes, or promotes a public rally, meeting, or procession, or neglects or refuses to comply with any law relating to public meetings commits an offense.
Yes.
But it also says that the Cabinet Secretary may, by notice in the Gazette, designate the areas where and times at which public meetings, gatherings, or public processions may be held.
So what's unconstitutional about that?
Okay. Do we not have the right to assemble, demonstrate?
Absolutely, we have that right. The only difference here is
why regulate?
Yeah, exactly. Because Article 24 says exactly that you cannot allow people who are protesting about donkeys or animal rights to go to Biashara Street and stop other people who are doing their business. You can't stop people's right to freedom by actually waking up in the morning and say you are going to Uhuru Highway. We must, let me tell you, if you have gone, you and I know that if you go to the White House, outside the White House, there is a specific spot designated for protests, where somebody sits there. Some people, we are told, have been there for 5 years. Why can't we designate a place around State House, around the gate there, so that anyone who wants to protest against the presidency has a specific place? That person is given security, that person is searched, and they are protected themselves, and they make their point. We can't tell people to protest
There are
anywhere.
two things to be said about that. One, of course, it's true and it's right that protests and demonstrations, processions be regulated in the interest of orderly society and those who may not be involved, who may want to conduct the business. But the question to raise about that is, why would the CS be the one authorized to gazette the places? This function has been performed very well by the police, because on short notice the police are required to notify the OCS or the division command. They organize you and tell you go this way and provide the escort. Why do we have to bring in the CS?
What David is right about is not even the police. It has always been the county councils. And what I'm willing to discuss, and that's the other side should be able to make proposals, is to say it cannot be cabinet secretary, it will be county government, you know, by law or regulations of county government.
Okay, and then secondly, what motivates, what is the inspiration behind that new regulation? Are we being prevented from doing certain things? I mean, we recently had demonstrations against members of parliament for hiking their pay and salaries, and they took Parliament Street. I mean, county, whatever that street is called. Are we now going to say that if you want to protest because you are such a nuisance, go and protest in Dagoretti?
No,
we will hear you from there.
No, that will not make reasonable.
There must be a motivation for every legislation.
Parliament within a particular
what inspires it at this point? That's what I'm trying to
do. And stop, you know, disturbing people in the Harambee Avenue. Come to the Parliament itself.
Yes. I think for me, I think we are losing the bigger question here. Senator Murkomen, and I mean, I appreciate your position. I think let's not push Kenyans to saying let's discuss necessarily the provisions of this law and tie us to that. Every law must have a founding philosophy. The reason why it's being brought on the table today. There is the rationale. And for me, this bill has come out in the wake of terrorist attacks.
Absolutely.
And therefore security.
Absolutely.
And we all want to support our government in rooting out terrorism and insecurity. But what I'm saying is this law is excusing the failings in matter security. You know, because Murkomen is not telling us, for example, how does this law, and because for me that's a very important, if you want to assure, give Kenyans the assurance that they must support this law, tell us, Murkomen, how is it that we have now dealt with the question of intelligence, especially our failings to use intelligence in the past, which has been attributed now to the killing of about 200 Kenyans, right?
Yes.
You know,
let me come to two things.
This we should really do.
Exactly.
And secondly, the whole question of, I mean, people are also saying this bill is just a smokescreen. Maybe we shouldn't even be in Somalia in the first place, because even how we went to Somalia is, for me, just an excuse. Some lady had been kidnapped, and then all of a sudden we felt that we're going. I mean, I think even let's address the philosophy. What brings about this bill? I think this bill is very emotive, very reactionary, and I think it really needs to be. And then it shouldn't be rushed, like the way, I mean, you can hear the language. Or let's pass it as it is. And I think let's try to let's listen, Senator.
Let's address that particular aspect.
Because really for me, Senator,
and
is a very important
of the Public Order Act.
Can I come to?
And by the way, before you answer that, but the question about now regulating gatherings. I mean, the law has never failed us in the past. All you need to do is notify, and you can hold your gathering. As a matter of fact, we are again going to this copy-pasting. What Americans are doing, we can do it in Kenya. I mean, we've done very well in terms of, you know, how we regulate our gatherings. So why tell us
the
today?
problem with protests that are regulated in a terrorist environment is that elements of terrorism can be able to infiltrate. You have blocked the jam in Uhuru Highway. There is nothing that stops a terrorist from planting now at that point in time a bomb in one of the bridges or something of that sort. So it's just to designate places that will not, you know, cause certain casualty. But let me come to the most important
hypothetically, before you get out of that comment. For example, what will the CS do? Gazette, like, let's take a hypothetical example. Are there going to be permanent picketing sites? Are they going to be based on
I think that's why I say, even if we don't put in the CS office, and I'm willing, personally, in my own personal opinion, that should be left to county government. So that they are the ones who will say it's Uhuru Park is available for rallies, City Stadium at a particular time, if you give a particular notice.
The challenge
and the place of picketing in this place is so forth and so forth. So for me, I'm willing us to discuss the entity that is going to designate. But designating a place for protesting is a very important step towards protecting others from your right to protest.
Right.
But let me
just a minute, still on that, because isn't the problem that the bill in its current form politicizes the granting of rights to protest, whether it's the CS or the county government, as we saw when the opposition called were trying to go around and collect signatures, and you had governors from the opposing side saying you cannot come here.
Exactly.
And so which is why you give the authority to a neutral arbiter like the police.
How does it politicize? The cabinet secretary is not a politician. He's a public servant.
No, you are recommending the county government.
I'm just saying that even if it's county government, there will be a department that is actually designated that doesn't have to be the governor who is a politician. But let's come to NIS. First of all, we need to appreciate that for the long time in this country, we've accused the security system for having intelligence and taking no action.
Right.
So one of the things that's provided for in this law is to give them the power to arrest and them to hold guns so that they can protect themselves, they can take action where there is a possibility that an act has occurred. Second is that the biggest problem we've talked about is coordination. We have always said that this, even in the Westgate report or the observations of Kenyans, was that the separate agencies of security were operating in a disjointed manner. So what have we done? Created an agency at the border, created an anti-terrorism coordination agency, created an agency to coordinate matters of security at the airports. And the airports is very critical because, one, it improves security at the airports. Two, it improves also the status of our airports in the country and gives confidence to investors to come to the country. So there are solutions. I started, Dr. Aukot, by saying that amending the law is just one step, but it's an important step, so that then it can provide environment for us to move to the human resource, which you have a problem with, to say who is the right person to stay here. Let me give an example of the issue of the presidency, for example, in charge of appointing of the Inspector General. If you read the Constitution,
sorry, let's go bit by bit, because you hit us with quite a bit. Okay. Let's focus on the National Intelligence Services.
On the matter of empowering NIS officers to arrest. Clearly, what you're trying to cure is the failure by police to act on intelligence that been given.
Yes.
You're doing nothing about that.
Supposedly, this
you want to arm the people who are gathering intelligence to begin to arrest, to detain.
Now we are
so we're having another extra police function conferred on intelligence services. Why is that necessary? Instead of causing the police to act.
It is necessary because we have always given this excuse that intelligence was provided, arrest was not carried out. So let us, maybe because we have less...
Get the arrest to be done.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Don't get the intelligence to arrest.
And remember that function given to NIS is not absolute. It is as provided with the management of the Director General of the NIS. So it's not like every day you arrest everybody.
Is it a fact that
the situation demands.
Isn't it a fact that NIS used to arrest?
Yes, they used to.
And we removed it.
Yes.
Was that
take it back?
We have now realized that we removed it became a problem.
Oh, no.
We are going back to the very bad way.
That's what you are saying.
Yeah.
Isn't it a fact they used to hold, and now they're holding people for a year?
No, there's no longer that. You cannot, you look at the law, go to the specific provisions.
For the requisite time.
You can be held for requisite time, which is provided, but you must be produced in court within 24 days. 24 hours.
Yes.
And once you go to court, you can request the court to hold that person longer with the permission of the court. And the exceptions,
and as long as 90 days. The ultimate is 90 days,
90 days.
Yes.
But even then, that holding for those 90 days is not as per determined by the police. It's as determined by the court.
Now, can I address that? Can I please come to that? If you look at those provisions alone, let's go to chapter 4 of the Constitution, which is I'm saying this bill will rob us of the Constitution.
But go to specifics.
No.
Don't give generalities.
No, it's not general. I'm being specific. I mean, if you look at the trial provisions in the Constitution, right to fair hearing, all those things, to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. I mean, and even the fact that a murder suspect today in Kenya can actually be given bail. But we are saying on the mere suspicion that you could be a terrorist, that we can hold you for 90 days. If that is not really violating our Constitution, what could be more violating than that?
But Dr. Aukot, to be fair, I'll give you an example. Look at Sydney, the siege.
Yes.
Right. And the person who took all those people hostage in the cafe, he had been on the radar of the securities. He was out on bail. He had sent, offensive letters to families of victims, all sorts of red flags about his behavior and the manner in which he conducted himself. Do you not think in that case that this is somebody who should have been held, should have been denied bail, and if that had happened, perhaps we wouldn't have had the siege?
Listen, you can deny, but you must have very good reasons for why you want to deny somebody bail.
That's the law.
I do not think the mere suspicion, and that's why I'm saying this law has to be incongruent with the Constitution.
But suspicion has grounds, though, doesn't it?
Can I come
But
to
how
this?
many people then will you arrest?
The point then again would work.
Can I support your argument?
You can imagine you'll have held 90 people or 99
Or even
people,
100 people
to
who are
get to one
protesting.
person who is an exception
Exactly.
to justify such a legislation. And then, but more importantly for me, the arresting powers that you want to give to the NIS, to me, it seems like they will deprive them eventually of the time they need to go and do intelligence. Because after you arrest, you have to prosecute those suspects. Are we going to give the prosecutorial power? I mean, the NIS office is going to have to come to court to be the ones again doing the police.
As a matter of fact, I want to ride on Makali's point, which is I think this bill is going to expose our intelligence officers.
Exactly.
If you're going to tell our intelligence officers, and I think, God forbid, if I'm NIS and I want to do my undercover intelligence, I don't want to be given the responsibility of harming myself and then arresting these people. I would rather share the intelligence, like it's been done before, with the police, then arrest, and then, prosecute. You see, I think we keep on running away from the fact that we have not effectively used the means we have within ourselves.
Yes.
Let me
address that.
Senator, please address for us that issue, because don't you agree that by saying let's harm our NIS, we are actually exposing them? Yet these are people, we want them as our private eye. We want them to be undercover. We don't want to expose our intelligence.
Address that point. Address the point. Address the point of this, because it seems what you're trying to do is legislate on capacity. And that's not going to work. How do you, because the various security agencies couldn't get their act together around Westgate, how do you create a law forcing them to work when they've not been able to do their own jobs?
Like
before I come to this NIS question is very important. And I said, I came here today saying I must discuss this law with specifics, because this is a serious matter. If you read the amendment that's provided for here, is that an officer of the service may stop and detain any person whom the officer witness engaging in a serious offense. Because you have no time to go and say you're witnessing someone committing a serious offense, or two, find in possession of any object or material that could be used for the commission of a serious offense. You find someone with explosives, you are saying, okay, I'm an intelligence person, I'll go look for the police to come and arrest that person.
Actually,
so there are certain things.
Ordinary citizen can arrest also.
I'm just saying.
Ordinary citizen can arrest.
That's what I'm saying.
Ordinary.
No, before we come to that, I am saying specifically for the NIS.
I don't need the law to arrest a criminal.
No problem.
As a matter of
but I'm
fact,
just saying the specifics of why you needed an NIS officer to act in situ immediately on an issue that they have been able to see in the place where they have seen it, is because we are dealing with a threat of terrorism. We are in the border of say Mandera. That person is likely to go back to Somalia before he's arrested. Arrest that person. Let's have that debate later.
By the way, listen.
First of all,
Wakili,
can I complete?
Wakili, let me interject on that. I mean, now let me address you as Wakili. Okay, listen. There is nothing novel, nothing new about that.
Yes.
Like Mutegi is saying, any citizen, I mean, in fact, look at the language they're using, witnessing.
Yes.
I mean, I will arrest anybody if I know, if I can witness them committing an offense. So that's really nothing new.
So why are we complaining?
Okay,
about it?
So what we are saying is, actually this bill indicts the existing institution and their failings.
No problem, but at least you are agreeing that there is nothing wrong with NIS arresting people.
No,
but
hang
let's go to, let me complete
the situation that seems to address is where we've had intelligence. And I'll take you to the White Widow, for instance, who were told, and others who were told were living in this country safely. And our police were given a tip-off. And instead of arresting these people,
they were paid.
That's what I'm saying.
So then how does this law stop that from happening? If our security officers are bribable, compromisable, it does not make any difference if you have this law, because the same thing could happen with the NIS.
I could read for you the specific provision of this law that provides that any policeman who is found to be aiding or abetting terrorism or will be prosecuted liable for offenses of over 20 years, 30 years actually, of being sentenced for over 30 years.
How is that going to work if we haven't been told who was liable for Westgate, the bumbling of Westgate?
It makes it more expensive for a person to aid or abet a criminal or terrorist activity in this country. Both persons who are officers in the immigration and persons who are officers in the police. You know, I think there's something, yes, let me say something. There's something new. 30 years is deterrent. But let me come to this. You know, a lot of lies have been peddled on the issue of permitting this issue of detaining somebody over 24 hours. You can read the amendment, and it's very clear. It says that the person, once you arrest someone, produce the suspect before court in 24 hours, or apply in writing to the court for an extension of time for holding the suspect in custody. And when court when you are making the application, look at the nature of the offense, the general nature of the evidence you have, inquire.
I'm not a lawyer, but isn't this covered in the existing law? Apply for extension.
Let me say this: the courts are only looking at that evidence, can release the suspect unconditionally. Does not release the suspect subject to certain conditions and so forth.
I have to.
So when you hear people just making those general statements in public, they must have,
those
we have to take a break.
Don't exist in the CPC.
Right.
They do.
Thank you. We have to take a break now.
Right.
Yeah. We have to take a break now. Stay with us here in Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. And we'll be back with Senator and lawyer Kipchumba Murkomen speaking for the Security Laws Amendment Bill, and constitutional lawyer and professor Dr. Ekuru Aukot speaking against it in its current form. Tell us what you think. Our SMS number is 22422 and our Twitter handle is @Cheche_TV.